It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes.
Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante.
Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Sheryl Tingling, who's the regional admissions recruiter for New Jersey and New York at the University of Tennessee. Sheryl, it's so great to see you again. Welcome back. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. So great to be back.
It is an honor and pleasure. I can't believe that the last episode was released back in September of 2023, and it's great to get a refresher on the awesome University of Tennessee, which has become even more popular than ever in terms of all the students that I know up here in the Northeast where I'm based out of. So since that last conversation, Sheryl, what new initiatives, programs, or campus developments should prospective students and families know about at the great University of Tennessee?
Absolutely. Great question. So we have been growing the last few years. And so kind of the big thing is that we're now offering more pathway opportunities for students. And so whether they are, waitlisted and they're waiting on their final decision for the fall, or we've given them a final decision in our regular decision release, they now have more opportunities to still be a Tennessee volunteer, but in a little bit of a less traditional path. And so the first one being Verto, which is definitely one of my favorites, is where a student can choose one out of 5 locations to be able to do either a semester or a year-long study abroad opportunity. And the second option is Rocky Top Transfer Pathway, and that's when students can utilize our local community college, and they have the option of taking courses both in person or virtually. And that will be a year-long program for students to utilize. And then the last program will be Access Collaborative. And that's when they're using one of our sister schools, the closest one being in Chattanooga, which is about an hour and a half away. And that is also a year-long program. And so we're really excited about those. We've been getting a lot of traction with our students utilizing them, and more students are able to ultimately become a Tennessee volunteer.
Well, it's great to hear that you're trying to give more access to even more students, study abroad opportunities, transfer options, which is truly amazing as you're trying to help each and every student out there. Now, Sheryl, how would you describe the University of Tennessee's core mission and philosophy, and how do these principles shape the student experience academically, socially, and of course, beyond the classroom?
Absolutely. So we are a campus of diverse students, and we're wanting to have a shared commitment of discovery and creativity and learning and engagement. And so that definitely is happening in the classroom. Our classes are rigorous, but we're wanting to make sure that we're getting students from diverse backgrounds and that we are allowing students to participate in a multitude of ways outside of the classroom as well. And so I think that's just like really shown through how many student life opportunities students have, whether that's through, Greek life or being able to study abroad or one of our 450 clubs and activities we have on campus. And then, of course, we can't not mention that we are in the middle of downtown Knoxville. So that's literally your backyard. You can try such amazing activities. I know while I was down there, as a Bronx girl, I was trying line dancing and whitewater rafting. And so it's really an opportunity to kind of expand your horizons and try something new.
Well, 450 clubs and activities located, of course, in the awesome downtown Knoxville. And so UT serves both in state and out of state students. You mentioned yourself, Cheryl, you're from the Bronx. How do these populations differ in the admissions process, if at all? I'm talking about the in state and out of states. And what should families be aware of?
Absolutely. Great question. And so, in the last few years, I don't think this was a set program when we last did this recording in 2023. So, we have implemented a guaranteed admissions policy for in state students. And so, you have to be living in state, you have to be graduating from an in state institution, and then you have to have a minimum 24 ACT composite or SAT equivalent, minimum 19 on your math and your reading subsections. And then you need to either have a 4.0 UT core weighted GPA or be in the top 10% of your graduating class to automatically be admitted for admission if you are in state, of course. So that was a very big change, of course. And I know the biggest kind of difference I've been seeing in our enrollment process is that a lot of those guaranteed admission students are getting obviously admitted in that first round. So we are a little bit more conservative with out of state students in that early action round. So I know I've gotten a lot of phone calls like, my kid is really, really great. What's going on? That's pretty normal for us at this point because of that guaranteed admissions policy. But not to fret, we do have that regular decision release in that spring. And that's when we are admitting the majority of our out of state students. Also, keep in mind the majority of our applications are coming from out of state as well. So naturally, that's going to make the application pool just a little bit more competitive. But other than that, the admissions process remains the same. Everyone is submitting the exact same materials. They have the exact same deadlines as well.
Well, we appreciate you talking about the guaranteed admissions policy for in state students. Basically, you need to be in the top 10% of your class if you're in state. Now, I also know that the University of Tennessee does not have an ED option, an early decision option, which is binding. Cheryl, could you share the rationale as to why the University of Tennessee doesn't have the ED round?
Yes, absolutely. So I just believe with early decision and it being binding, at that time, students are not going to have the full picture of what it's going to cost to attend UT or their other options. And we want to make sure students have as much information to make an informed decision. And so that's why I think we're likely going to be sticking with only early action and regular decision for the foreseeable future.
Well, we appreciate that. And can you explain UT's holistic review process, Cheryl? In other words, once the application is submitted, and this is what so many students, families, and even college counselors that listen, how many people review that application once it's submitted? And can you share any related data in terms of your review process?
Yes, absolutely. And so, a minimum of 3 sets of eyes will be reviewing through your application. And we are not using, like AI technologies. Like I am sitting at a Panera during travel season reading through your application. And so it's definitely going to be a human process. And while we're looking at your application, we are holistic. So we are looking at everything you have provided us. And so that's why it's so important that at the time you submit your application, you are making it as competitive as possible. And so I am, of course, looking at your academic profile, but I'm not just going to look at your, recalculated GPA and your test scores. I'm going to look at the rigor of your courses. I'm going to look at the trajectory of your grades from eighth grade till junior year. I'm also going to look at your essay. I'm going to look at your letters of rec if you've chosen to add that to your application. And then I'm going to look at your activities and your awards. And so it's so important that you are really highlighting everything you've done thus far and letting us know, not only your admissions counselor, but, the read through your academic department know why you would be a good fit into UT.
Well, that's awesome that you have a minimum of 3 readers. You emphasize the fact that it is a human process, no AI. And basically, you're looking at all of the components of the overall application. So, students, I say it all the time, it's very important that you understand what the point of each component is, how they need to build upon each other, and not necessarily repeat in multiple areas the same thing, so that you're giving the best complete information in terms of who you are as a potential student at the great University of Tennessee. Now, Sheryl, how does your admissions team evaluate high school transcripts, especially for students with AP, IB, honors, dual enrollment? There are so many different things coming from all of these high schools throughout the country and beyond. And do you recalculate the GPA or rely on the high school's reporting?
Yes, I'm so happy you mentioned that. So we actually recalculate a student's high school GPA and we do a UT core weighted GPA. So we're only going to be utilizing your core courses. And so that'll be 4 credits in English and math, 3 credits within science, 2 credits within history, 2 credits within a foreign language, and American Sign Language counts as a language, and then 1 credit within art. So in total, 16 credits. You don't need to have all 16 to apply, but it would be in your best interest to take all 16 credits. And for example, if you have 5 math courses and you're like, but Sheryl, you're only taking 4, we will take the highest 4 credits. So that's not going to be an issue. And as far as those higher, bigger courses, we love to see it. And ultimately, you've done the work. So just send in your transcript if it is a dual enrollment course. For AP and IB, I'll be able to see that on your high school transcript. And you can always see how those things transfer over through our website. So we have a course equivalency table. So you can plug in like, hey, I've taken courses at Rutgers and I want to know how that comes over. Or for AP, you can see if it's a 3 or higher or 4 or higher. And then ultimately, before you come on campus, we will have an academic advising meeting to definitively say, this is what has come over as an elective, and this is what's come over as your core course.
Well, we appreciate that. And I'm going to repeat that you do, in fact, recalculate the GPA. So many colleges and universities do. So, students and families, a great follow up question when you're meeting with a rep on campus or perhaps at a high school visit, and Sheryl touched upon it, is that when they recalculate, you want to ask, do you recalculate everything or just the core courses? As Sheryl said, at the University of Tennessee, they're looking only at the core courses. And there are certain things that they're looking at. For example, they're looking for your highest 4 years in terms of math. So even if you took 5 years, as Sheryl said, they're going to look at your highest 4 in terms of what they're looking at for their overall holistic review. Now, Sheryl, how do standardized tests fit into your current evaluation process? And what advice would you give students who are unsure about submitting scores or not? This is something that comes up constantly when I speak to students and their families.
Yeah, so that's an easy one for us. So we require test scores. And so if you're applying to UT, you are going to have to submit your test scores. And we don't have a preference in regards to ACT over SAT. It is completely up to you on whichever one you're wanting to take. We'll take both. And so since we do require those test scores, I would just check in based on your major or academic college. What is their middle 50th percentile? What's their average? There are some programs, especially like nursing or engineering or computer science, that has a higher overall super score versus, a different program of study.
Well, that's terrific and very simple. At the University of Tennessee, bottom line, you must submit test scores. Now, a question that comes up a lot when I speak to students and families is that many times they take AP courses, whether it's in 11th grade or perhaps even 10th grade. So the point being is that at the time of the application, they do have some AP scores that are available to them. Do students at Tennessee submit AP scores, and is that something that you encourage? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's dependent on the student. We will take them, of course, but it's not a requirement at the time that you apply for admission to submit your test scores. That's something that after you've been admitted, you can say, okay, I want to potentially get that college credit. Let me submit my test scores at this date.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And the Common Application activity section allows very limited space for each activity. Cheryl, how important is it for applicants to communicate leadership, impact, or motivation? And can you share an example of a student who did this extremely well in that very limited space?
Absolutely. I actually have beef with Common App in their activities section and how it's so small. So I always tell students, especially if they're engaged in so many activities, kind of give kind of the Cliff Notes version within Common App, but then send in a copy of your resume through the portal where you are unlimited in saying everything that you've been doing. But yes, ultimately, showcasing your leadership, showcasing the things that mean something to you is very important within our review process, in particular with volunteering. We are the Tennessee Volunteers, so hit, hit, wink, wink. You should definitely be putting some information on there. And I'm looking more so for quality versus quantity. I'd rather see that you're doing, 3 to 4 things really well, and you've been doing it for a year and a half, 2 years, and you started off as a general member and now you are in a leadership position versus you kind of bouncing between a bunch of different things as just like, a sitting member. So ultimately, this is the time for you to brag on yourself. You've done the work. You just got to tell me about it. And you guys are doing such incredible work at such a young age. So don't be afraid to tell us about it.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process.
Well, definitely don't be afraid to tell you about it. Students, during the application process, that's not the time to be shy or modest. You could be modest the rest of your life, but definitely not during the application process. You want to show off all the great things that you've done, not only in the classroom, but beyond. Now, the personal statement is a key way for students to personally shine. And this is probably one of the things that is most stressful for students because at the time of the application, it's really a clean slate, right? At the time of application, the transcript is pretty much done. Your activity sheet should be done in terms of what you chose to do after school, throughout high school. But the personal statement, that's really a fresh start. And again, where you want to have your personality shine through. So, Cheryl, can you share an example of an essay that really stood out, including the topic and approach the student took that really resonated with you and your admissions team?
Yeah, for sure. And I may have discussed this the last time I was here, but a topic that definitely stood out to me was a SpongeBob essay. And it was really just going over resiliency. And if you've watched SpongeBob, he is quite resilient. He always has a good attitude. And the student was just saying they had, a little bit of a tougher home life, but they kept persevering. They were utilizing their resources. And at the end of the day, they knew that they would thrive no matter what they were doing because they had that resiliency within themselves. And I think, of course, that resonated with me just because I grew up on SpongeBob. So it kind of gave that nostalgia there. But ultimately, the topic doesn't really matter too much. I think kind of the pitfalls that I tend to see is that the essay is not talking about you as the student. And so you can have a really great topic, but if you're not bringing it back to who you are, and you're not giving me new information about yourself, then it's not going to be an effective essay. And so this cycle, I've seen a lot of like recipe essays. I've seen song essays, so very creative topics. Just make sure you're giving me some new information. Make sure that you are still considering it a writing sample as well. So try not to do like a voice to text kind of situation because I can tell that within essays now. I also wouldn't recommend using AI, but that's your business. And if, of course, you're putting a school's name within your essay, make sure you are changing that through Common App as you're sending those into various schools.
Wow, such great advice. And I love how you talked about the fact that it's not about the topic, but it's how you use the topic to really share something new about you. A typical mistake that we talk a lot about on the podcast episodes is that maybe someone writes about a grandparent, and the grandparent is awesome. The admissions reps want to admit grandma, but they learn nothing new about the student. And so that's really a missed opportunity, students, because it really has to be all about you. Now, for students, Sheryl, who might have had an IEP or a 504 plan or some other learning consideration while in high school, what resources and supports are available at UT, and how does this factor into the admissions process?
So we absolutely have a student accommodations office, and it has your IEP or 504 plan has no bearing on your admissions decision. That's not going to be a question in your application. We will not know about it unless you tell us, but even if you do, it's not going to have an impact on your admissions decision at all. That would be more of a conversation over the summer before you start courses. You will schedule a meeting with a student accommodations officer and go over your documentation, go over the accommodations you may need to be successful with us. And then you will just have a updated meeting like every semester to see how you're doing, if there's anything we could be changing, to make sure that you're, having a great time with us.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate the fact that it's not part of the overall application, but you made it very clear. Students, if you do decide to disclose it, it's not going to be held against you in the application review. But you do have an office specific to students that might have some learning differences. And so I always put the Office of Undergraduate Admission in the show notes. Sheryl, if there are any other links that you want to share, of course, send them to me and we'll make them available to students and families in the show notes. Now, you have met with so many students and families over the years. What are some common mistakes or misconceptions that you see families make during the application process, and how can they avoid them?
Yes, I love that you've added this question. I think the biggest thing is that parents assume that the cycle remains the same year after year. Everything can change after one cycle has ended. And so that goes in terms of the academic profile of students. That goes in terms of the actual application. That can change a little bit. Deadlines can change, and financial aid are all subject to change year by year. So even if you had a student that has gone through the process even 2 years ago, everything could be different. And so just making sure that you're asking these questions and then like listening to the response for this particular year, because what has happened last year may not be accurate anymore. And then the second big thing, and I know it's so nice to have other avenues of information, but make sure you are taking information from third-party sites with a grain of salt. I always say get your information from the source, which would be our website, or would be someone that works within admissions through UTK. And so I know those Facebook pages are really nice. I know even Google is really nice to do like a really quick search, but sometimes you can get misinformation and that can lead to, some serious repercussions in the end. So just, reach out to me if you have questions or call our one-stop phone line.
I really appreciate the fact that you talked about third-party websites. Folks, the colleges and universities, it is their job to maintain their websites, to make sure that the information is up to date so that they are there serving you, students, families, and college counselors. So as Sheryl said, be careful with the third-party websites. Definitely go to the university or college's website because they have to keep it up to date. Now, Sheryl, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I always like to ask before we get to the end, is there a question that I didn't ask you today or a topic that just didn't come up in the conversation that you'd like to share with us now?
Yeah, I think something that I've been seeing in this cycle are students that are just focused on the application process, and then they get admitted and they're like, "Oh, snap. I didn't even look at like financial aid and scholarships or anything of the sort." And so I would just want to make sure students are doing that research ahead of time. Our website has been updated since August in regards to financial aid and scholarships. Do that research ahead of time to kind of know where you're going to be landing. We also have an estimated financial aid package calculator on our website. So that way you can make some informed decisions earlier on and maybe be able to, inquire with me if there's any additional aid or, applications you can be applying to in the fall versus asking during the spring because usually the deadlines are in the fall. And so I want to make sure that you guys have the whole picture so that way you, again, can make some informed decisions.
Well, I think that's great advice. And something that comes up often is that families don't have the financial aid conversation early enough. And the worst thing that could happen is that a student gets admitted, perhaps it's a reach school, gets admitted only to find out that the family can't afford it. So it's very important to have those conversations early. As you mentioned, there's tons of resources that could help you, such as the net price calculator. But I also appreciate what you said in terms of reaching out to find out about not only financial aid information, but perhaps there are some scholarships that students can apply to. Sheryl, this has been a phenomenal conversation. The University of Tennessee is so fortunate to have you, as were we here today. Unfortunately, it does lead us to the last question, which is, what are your top three pieces of advice? And you've given so much already, but what are your top three pieces of advice for students and their families getting ready for the college admissions process?
Absolutely. I am a data girly. So my thing is getting organized, doing your research over the summer before you start your senior year. That can bring down your anxiety so much. Go to your school's websites, make a chart about, tuition and fees, scholarships, deadlines, do your essays early, and then apply early. All of our applications will open up August 1st of your senior year. Get it done over the summer so you can actually enjoy your senior year. And then lastly, just making sure at the time that you are applying for admission that you have a competitive academic profile. So that way you can kind of put your schools into categories of like safety, goals, reach schools. And that way, maybe you're surprised when you get your decision and you're like, oh, okay, now that I know that like I'm in, I know that I'm also going to be getting this scholarship and this is going to be my projected out-of-pocket cost. And so just being organized, applying early, and making sure you're competitive for the schools you're planning on applying to.
Well, tremendous piece of advice. And like I said, this was an awesome conversation. Sheryl, thank you so much for coming back. I'm well aware that it's because of people like you and all of your colleagues that come back week after week to have these conversations with me that the podcast is possible. So I'm truly grateful to you for all of your help. And I look forward to having you in the future. Thank you so much, Sheryl. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for having me back.
My pleasure. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all and best wishes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.